Good morning, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Molweni, Goeiemorgen, Absheni, and I am Nonhlanhla the newly elected Project and Events Coordinator for the South African Black Women in Law organization, shortly known as SABWiL. Today, I am proud to officially host each and every one of you as we are gathered to host our first official SABWiL event of the year. But to most importantly, once again remember and salute the youth of 1976, the brave and courageous youth of 1976 who stood in the forefront of the struggle for liberation on this very same day. To me, this is a youth that resembles power, mainly because they did not flinch in the face of a repressive apartheid regime, but were rather determined and willing to risk and sacrifice their young lives to ensure that each and every one of us, most especially Black women and Black men like myself, will be able to enjoy the fruits of democracy and liberation. It is because of these very same ideals for which that they lived and died for that we, as the South African Black Women in Law organization, aim to ensure that legal education remains at the core of our efforts to build a generation of lawyers that will lead the country along with our courts with diligence, honor, dignity, and furthermore, take them to new and greater heights. It should therefore never elude each and every one of us that today's youth, the youth of today, represents the legal practitioners of tomorrow, and our failure to adequately prepare them for the responsibilities of tomorrow will not only fail, but rather propel the country along with our justice and court system and our legal fraternity to a downward spiral and bleak future. With that being said, we are super proud as SABWiL to say we have risen to this occasion this year under the theme Youth Power Legal Career Exposition. Now, before I go any further, I would like for our acting media officer to just play a video in commemoration of the 1976 youth, and furthermore allow our special guest who will be joining us today, the Director of Sports and Recreation and the late revolutionarist and iconic Tsietsi Mashinini's younger brother, China Mashinini, who will then impart a few words before I finally hand over to the President of SABWiL. Thank you. I'd really like to thank our guest, Mr. Mashinini, for gracing us with his presence, even though we were shortly cut off because of technical glitches. And I'd really like for each and every one of you to just bear with us, right? I think glitches happen everywhere. So thank you for just bearing with us. I will then now introduce our South African Black Women in Law President, Ms. Khuli, to then address each and every one of you. Thank you.
A very good morning to you all, and thank you very much for joining us today. We firstly apologize for the glitch that we are experiencing. At this point, we would like to call on the Director of Sports and Recreation, Mr. China Mashinini, to address the youth and say a few words of encouragement. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mashinini.
Good morning.
You are audible.
No, thank you very much.
Morning.
Maybe let me start by stating upfront that I'm here in my personal capacity, or maybe more as a representative of the Mashinini family, and not in my capacity as Chief Director of Sport and Recreation. And let me also appreciate and thank you for inviting me. I am not quite sure who I am addressing or who is in the audience. And I am not quite sure what in particular am I to speak about. But I think I got a glimpse of the theme that was spoken to earlier on, that speaks about women in law and something to do with, if I got it correctly, the power of education or something to that effect. It is really inspiring indeed to note that there are in this generation people who still cherish and see education as an important life skill. June 16, just to put it in perspective, was an uprising spearheaded mainly by the youth at secondary school. And it was really geared towards fighting for education rights and being afforded the opportunity to learn in a preferred language and not be forced to undergo education in the oppressor's language. So by and large, that is what started the uprising by a student leadership that was led by So one could easily say the ultimate objective of that uprising was to better the education system of a black child. And it is indeed helpful to look at our state of education and the education system in the present day, and the manner in which our education has evolved over time to get to where it is today. One can easily say there really isn't any remarkable improvement in our system. And to a large extent, I think that will disadvantage a black child over time. The leaders of the 76 uprisings would certainly not be proud by what is currently happening within our black schools or in our education system, and in particular our black schools. So there is a need for this generation, for future generations, to begin to improve on our education system, so that the liberation that was fought for by previous generations can be upheld and improved upon by the current generation and future generations. So it is exciting to see that in the legal fraternity, one would note that there are two things really that run the world, or that makes the world go round. One is the law, and two is currency. Having said that, it then places the importance of law or the legal system as one of the most important elementary systems of any society. And to see black people actively participating in that space is really encouraging. And I'm very happy to see that there are organizations such as yourselves that promote studies in the law sector and improve understanding of law, particularly in black communities. So I'm really impressed by what I see flighted on the screen here, but would have liked to know a bit more about what this is and who I'm actually talking to, and then we can engage a little further as we go along.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Nonhlanhla, for the introduction. Let us please have a moment of silence for the youth of 76. Thank you, everyone. Honorable guests, distinguished guests, honorable speakers, special greetings to our CEO and founder of SABWiL. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure indeed to once again welcome you to the SABWiL Youth Power Legal Career Exposition. I must confess that when I received this year's action plan and I saw what was to go down in the history dates of SABWiL, I was in awe. I was taken aback at the magnitude of our own plans for this year's for this year. Apologies. As if this was not enough, in the days leading up to this event, I saw the lineup of our honorable speakers that we have today. It was intimidating, I must say. Butterflies consumed my stomach. Needless to say, my internals are still blushing. It is thus both my honor and pleasure to host this event and to have our learned guests extend themselves to the service of others, particularly the youth of our country. I would like to share this honor to Advocate Nase of the Johannesburg Bar, Advocate Ncube, Durban Bar, Prosecutor Ms. Mkonazi, Candidate Attorney Ms. Latoya Masango of Clyde & Co. I greet you all. It is no secret that our youth are unemployed, and some still lack access to better education in some rural parts of our country. These numbers are still on a very high, and they continue to rise daily as we are confronted with many difficulties as a country. We are therefore doing our part. We are giving of ourselves to the academic development of our youth. To help increase their employability and to bridge the gap. We are SABWiL. We are an international consciousness movement that celebrates South Africa, celebrates Blacks, celebrates women and law. We live and breathe our ethos. We are founded upon dignity, equality, and freedom, infused in the philosophies of Ubuntu and Zenzele. Denise Morrison captured this beautifully when she said, leadership is a service. There is a power in giving, to help people, to inspire people, to motivate them to become, to reach their fullest potential. I, as the president of SABWiL, I say to you, service to those who cannot repay you is the highest honor one can achieve. And we are honored today to have you in our midst, to drink from the same well of greatness as we do. With that being said, I welcome you all. Igama, lamakhosikazi, malibongwe. Let the name of women be praised. At this moment, I would like to take an opportunity to introduce our panel for today. First up, I would like to call upon Ms. Thandi Mkonazi. She is a prosecutor. We welcome you to our midst. Secondly, I wish to welcome Ms. Latoya Masango. She's a candidate attorney at Clyde & Co. Thirdly, I'd like to welcome Advocate Ayabonga Nase. He is a former legal clerk and is now a newly admitted attorney of the Johannesburg Bar. I would also like to welcome our very own alumni, Thabo Makubane, who is a 4IR legal tech specialist. And lastly, I would like to welcome Advocate Ncube of the Durban Bar. Welcome all distinguished guests.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President.
You may proceed.
Thank you, President. Thank you to our very esteemed guests. Thank you for honoring our invitations. It means a lot to us as the South African Black Women in Law Organization. As we all know, the purpose of this event was to really delve deeper into the different types of legal careers afforded to law students after they obviously complete their qualifications. And the purpose also was to further engage with legal practitioners like yourselves to just ask a few questions that law students like myself would like to have answers to. And with that being said, we'll now move on to the discussions pertaining the aforementioned guest career parts and a question and answer series. I'd really like to see the our guests' faces. If it's possible for you to just show us your face so that I can see I'm speaking to people, because it's a bit intimidating to be speaking to, you know, blank screens. Oh, blank screens. And yeah, I'd really appreciate to just see all of your faces. I'm waiting for Mrs. Mkhwanazi.
I think mine has just a slight problem. It says your camera is disabled.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I think our administrator will just fix that for you.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you so much. I feel at ease now. The people invited today, right? These are people we look up to. I look up to a certain number of people here. I've experienced with certain people. Miss Masango, she won the SLS moot court competition. I'll never forget her for that. Mr. Ayabongana, I follow him on Facebook. I've been following this guy for like years now, and I wanted to invite him on this platform, and I finally gathered the strength to have him here. Mrs. Mkhwanazi, Danisile Mkhwanazi, as a prosecutor and as an aspirant prosecutor, it's truly an honor to have a prosecutor on board, because we've never invited a prosecutor on this platform. Thabo Makubani, not so sure about him. I don't know him, but I heard from the president that he's alumni, and so therefore I am very grateful that you all honored the invitation, along with Advocate Mube. I cannot see him, but I'm sure he can hear me. And yeah, so now we are just going to delve in deeper, right? It is very important that we ensure that people are comfortable and we don't just delve into important or rather serious issues at first, right? So I'd like for each and every one of you to just introduce yourself. Who are you? Where did you study? And why did you decide to do law? And perhaps that will inspire a number of law students out here that people who are wanting the position have managed to actually get into these legal routes, take these legal routes, and become the people that they are today. Thank you. I think I'd like to start with Mr. Nasi, seeing that his name starts with A, so let's just start with go alphabetically.
All right. Wow, spotlight. So I am Ayabonga Nase, as I've been introduced. I currently sit at a group of advocates called Group 621. It is based in Sandton in Johannesburg. Can you guys hear me properly, clearly? All right.
Yes,
it's currently based in Sandton. It's based in Johannesburg. Where I'm from the Eastern Cape, in a small town called Alice. The vernacular name is Etikeni, not too far from East London, from those who are a bit familiar. So I grew up in Alice and went to the University of Fort Hare in East London from 2010 until 2013, and then I did PLT, practical legal training in East London as well. And then I secured articles at VETS. So at VETS, there's two legal clinics. there's the Center for Applied Legal Studies, and then there's the Vets Law Clinic. So I was based at the Center for Applied Legal Studies for 2 years, and that was between 2015 and 2016. And then I got employment with them. I stayed on as an attorney for about 1 year and 8 months. So there I practiced primarily in a program called basic services. So we used to represent people who don't have houses, who are cut off, whose electricity is cut off, rural communities. We used to do protest work. And then from WITS, while I was at WITS also, I used to take up some of the modules at the Mandela School. So I did advanced certificates there in various modules. And then from there, I went on to study a master's, an LLM, in a small country in Europe called Switzerland. So I studied the master's. It was an LLM in trade and investment law. It was together with a diploma in international law and economics, which was my first time studying economics. But yeah, that was quite challenging. And then upon my return from Switzerland in 2019 July, I then said I was unemployed, due to start the following year at the Constitutional Court. So I then in 2020 clerked at the Constitutional Court for a judge called Justice Jafta. We spent 1 year there, and I subsequently left him mid-January last year. Then I was due to do pupillage at the Johannesburg Bar. So I did pupillage at the group where I'm based now, which is called Group 61, as I've said. And then did pupillage last year, passed pupillage, and now I practice as a member in the same group. So I currently sit in these chambers where I am now at a group called Group 61. So that's a bit of an intro about me. I don't know if there's anything more, but if things come up, I'm happy to engage.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nase. I'd like to hear from Mrs. Mkhwanazi. I'm not sure if I'm audible. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Mkhwanazi.
Miss Mkhwanazi.
Oh, Mkhwanazi. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Miss Dansile Mkhwanazi. Tandi is just one of my names, but I prefer to be called Dansile. I studied, well, I'm from a small town in Mpangeni, not originally from here. I'm just one of those, let me just call it, those people, you know, when your mom is a domestic worker and you grow up with the, you know, the employees and everything. I'm just one of those background. Just talking about my background. I grew up in Mpangeni with my mother's employers, and then I studied law at the University of Zululand, which is around this area where I'm from. Studied there, and I was fortunate enough. How I got into prosecution. Basically, there was, of course, one of the National Prosecuting Authority representatives who came and told us about the aspirant program, and I was in my 4th year at that time. So they told us about it, and they said, you know what, you apply here, you write an exam, and they told us the whole process. And I was interested. Why I was interested was because whilst I was studying law, I used to go to the local court and volunteer there. So I volunteered for one of the control prosecutors, which is management when it comes to prosecution. Control prosecutors. So I had an idea of how, you know, they work when it comes to courts. So I was always interested. And as soon as they came and presented the aspirant program, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. So I applied and was fortunate enough to be called for the exam, and wrote the exam, passed it, and was called for the aspirant prosecutors program in Durban. Oh, I can't hear. Somebody said I can't hear. Oh, so as I went through the program for 1 year in Durban in 2014, and then 2015 I was permanently employed. Came back to my town, which is in the Mpangeni area, and yeah, I've been there ever since. What I did was in 2019 I did my PLT because we know that you not really well. I okay, before I started the aspirant program, I'm jumping just a few. I went through articles as a candidate attorney, but I only did it for 3 months because I was called at the aspirant. I said, okay, bye guys. I apologize, going to what I want. And anyway, so because I didn't complete my articles, I didn't get to do the whole PLT and write my board exams. So in 2019, I chose to, you know what, let me just do the PLT online. And I did it, I completed it, and I wrote my board exams. So after that, I said, you know what, I need to do something else. Because, you know, youth, we always need to do something. Be doing something, especially when it comes to education. I decided to do a legal risk and compliance through the University of Johannesburg. So I completed that in 2021. Yeah. That's basically my.
Thank you. Now we'll have Miss Masango. Latoya.
Thank you very much, and morning to everybody. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to come at this time on a public holiday to listen to us. But my name is Latoya, as they said. I'm born and bred, raised in Joburg, and I went to school here. Initially, I decided to study law from as far back as high school. It was just one of those things I knew I wanted to do. I was good at public speaking. I liked it, and I was good at debating. So it sounds like the cliche, but you know, usually when you're good at those things and you're like, law is my career. So I figured it out from then, and I decided to study law. I went to tax originally, but I couldn't complete because of financial difficulties. So I had to drop out, and I was unemployed for a period. And it was probably one of the most difficult periods of my life because I didn't know what to do next, especially since my whole dream was premised on being a lawyer from as far back as high school. So I found a learnership in an insurance company, and I believe that's where my journey with insurance and insurance law began. So I started there and moved through different departments within the insurance industry until I eventually landed at, I believe, before articles, one of the best opportunities I have come across in my career so far, which was working as a junior assistant ombudsman at the Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance. It really exposed me to the insurance industry and really exposed me to the legal side of the insurance industry, which was quite interesting to experience. Through that journey, I found the SLS moot court. And again, that debating thing came back in me, and I was like, let me try my luck. And luckily, my luck led me to Clyde & Co., which is where I'm currently working. I had won that competition, which got me a bursary, and through that bursary, they offered me articles as well. So I'm now completing my articles at Clyde & Co., which is an insurance law firm, an international insurance law firm. And yeah, I think basically my journey through this entire legal process is one that started a very long time back and one which I intend to carry and further on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Masango. I'm not sure if we have Advocate Ngube. Is he here? Okay. Whilst we're still waiting for him, we'll then move on to Mr. Magubani, the 4IR specialist. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi guys. I'm not sure if I'm audible. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Amazing. I mean, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, my name is Thabo Makubane, a Chief Growth Officer at Legal Connection and the co-founder at Legal Connection. So I'm happy to be with you today to be sharing my journey with technology, law and technology. Surprisingly, I think I'm the only one who's kind of like different with the perspective of law, because it was never like my intention to study law. Like I was never passionate about it, but I've always been passionate with computers and code and, you know, so it's kind of funny that way, because that's where I differ from everyone else. But yeah, I think it's just, like, I'm not going to say much about myself. I mean, there's just tons of resources you can find online with my profile. But yeah, just to say a bit, I think that's one of the things I'm going to be speaking about today. It's just like how like I spotted an opportunity in an industry, then I sort of like went into it like all in and exploited that, and to build like businesses around that. So I've always been like a business minded person. I've started more than 10 businesses. So yeah, like how I'm trying to manage that with law and computers and how it came that to being. But I'm happy to be here today, like to briefly speak about the segments that I'm going to be sharing, like what is legal technology, what is it used for, what are the examples of legal technology, like certain careers which are sort of like rising in the law tech space, and then we're going to look at a case study of how is it applied. And then, yeah, like what can you do as a law student, especially as a law grad? But just a little bit about my background. Yeah, I was born and raised in KZN, but I've lived like in so many places. I've lived in Joburg, I've lived in Durban, I was working in Cape Town recently, but it was just exhausting because I was working back and forth. I was working for one of the fastest growing legal technology and implementation consultancy site. We did work for major brands all around the world, like for Coca-Cola, for Unilever, for major banks, HSBC. We did work in Dubai, we did work in the US, we did work in the UK. So it was pretty like an exciting journey to be in, and there was a lot of lessons which we learned along the way. But yeah, I think those were one of the things that led me to really look at how I can apply technology and law, and then later on I decided to go to law school at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. So yeah, I'm not an admitted a 10-year lawyer, but yeah, that's really like how I look at myself, like just the bridge between law and technology, and the bridge between law and certain like business aspects which can be applied to build scalable businesses and startups. So that's where my major focus is, really, like outside of my role as a chief growth officer, which I'm gonna explain, like what I do and what is it for, and how I really add value to businesses and stuff like that. Like I provide consultancy services to startups, and especially with growth methods and how to use the internet to sort of like foster growth, and how to connect with users and so forth and so on. But yeah, I'm just so happy to be here today and to come back to the SABWiL family. Like I was bred and raised here. I made a lot of friends in the SABWiL family, and I mean, this is still my family. Like I speak with Advocate Ayesha. Like I think we were in the same program last year together, which was called like Practice. It was an American-based certification program where we were just exploring a different business method and different business models, which we can sort of like bring back to the legal segment. So we had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I'm happy to be here today and to share my journey and to learn from everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rani. Is Mr. Advocate Ncube available, President?
It looks like he's still struggling to connect. He has technical difficulties. We may proceed with the program. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. I saw a hand by Diteko. I don't know if he has a question. If you do, please kindly pose it right now before I move. Okay, Diteko is silent. Thank you so much for the introduction. They were really amazing and inspirational to know that people who are from in Xhosa we say Ezlalini, you know, in the villages they were able to make it this big, and it's truly inspirational to young people like myself in my position. I'll then now move on to the questions we received from a number of law students that we are supposed to pose to you guys. So I'm not sure if the president would like to start or if I can start.
Okay, I will start with the first question. I think some of the questions our speakers have already addressed in their introduction. Things like, at what point did they decide in their lives that they wanted to do law. We've had very insightful and inspirational answers. It's almost like they knew that these questions were there and they were going to be posed to them. Now, this question, I've heard a lot of people asking this question, and we've seen the trend when it comes to some institutions where preference is sort of shown, or subconscious bias, if you want to call it that. But one student actually asked, do tertiary institutions that you go to study law matter to law firms or in the legal profession? Does it really matter where you studied, and does it carry weight in securing your articles or applying for certain positions, particularly the position of a legal clerk? So that is the first question. Does the institution where you study law matter, and does it count against you or for you when applying for a job, whether articles or being a legal clerk in the legal fraternity? So I think anybody can take that question. I think it's open to everyone, because our guests are coming from different backgrounds and different institutions.
I think I can try from my side. So I went to UNISA, and this is a controversial question, but it's one that comes up quite often. But I went to UNISA, and that's one of the universities that sometimes this question comes up. Does it matter if you went to UNISA, and can you make it into certain types of firms if you went to UNISA, or, you know, other previously disadvantaged or historically disadvantaged, I think that's how they're called, universities? And I don't want to say that it doesn't matter, but I believe what you have to offer is what matters the most. And I'm saying that from the perspective that I work in a firm where, like I'm saying, I come from UNISA, and there's other students that have gone to UNISA as well and are working in the same firm, which might be considered a good firm. But at the same time, I don't want to sit and say that that narrative doesn't exist, because I think it does, considering that the question comes up quite often. But I would say, considering that that is something that is at the back of most people's minds, always think to yourself, what can I offer? Beyond the university I go to, if the stigma exists, what else can I do to make me a perfect candidate for the role that I want? If you're going to rely on the institution only, you're putting yourself on a back foot. Because in the same way as, you know, for example, there might be seen to be a preference for a WITS, let's say, there's still a lot of WITS students that can't get the type of opportunities that they're looking for. So your institution is one thing, but what you have to bring to the table, be it your marks, be it your activities, whatever it is what's going to make you a well-rounded candidate. And I think that's what matters the most. That's from my side.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, sorry.
I think for me, I would say it does matter, and it really depends on where you want to be after university. So if you want to be, so for instance, for me, we were never exposed really when I was at Fort Hare to law firms coming to our varsity and having those career exhibition expos that they usually have. So you wouldn't have your Bowmans, for instance, or your Webber and whatever coming through. But what you would have is you would have the Concord clerks coming to have a talk. You'd have public interest law organizations coming to have a talk, and then that is the type of, and that's why then I get to start at VET at CAUS, because I had known those guys, I'd interacted with them. But also when I was at varsity, so where it starts, it's I think what you then do when you are at varsity. For instance, you'll have had that Ms. Mkwana, as I said, she used to go volunteer at the court. You had Latoya saying she used to go, she did like a learnership at some point. So it matters really what you do at varsity in order to attract the type of place that you also want to go to after. So hence, for me, then after university, I then went to VET at the Center for Applied Legal Studies. So I would say it does matter, but what really matters more is what you do about it when you are there in university.
Okay. Okay. We'll just now move on to the next question, right? So, as we all know, not everyone's really good at articulating, especially when it comes to using the English language, right? So a student asked, how would you advise students who are not confident in their ability to articulate in English or are afraid to speak publicly to better themselves in terms of this profession? Yeah, that's the question. So the student is not confident and he or she cannot articulate properly in English. And if there's anything, I think if you can also go online and just Google the traits a lawyer is supposed to have, they will tell you a lawyer is supposed to be confident, a lawyer is supposed to be an analytical thinker or be able to articulate properly. So how does a student who lacks these qualities then make it as a lawyer? What would you advise him or she or her to do to better themselves in that aspect?
Anyone can take that question. I think it's more of a generic question. It's not really directed at anybody.
Oh yeah, I think I can take. Yeah, I think, like, as I said, like, I'm not a lawyer, speaking from a non-lawyer perspective. I think the first thing I think that which has to be, like, I started advising clients when I was third year law student. I think I started working when I was second year third year law student. I was already working when I was studying. So I think it's just the amount of, which is one of the things that I would speak about. I think it's the stigmatization of failure in law school. I think that's one of the things that we are told, that you should not fail, you should win. But I think it's the whole lawyer character that is associated with that, because like in law, you must not fail. Like when you are in court, you are representing your client, and failure is something that is punished either with cost or so forth or so on. So I think it's to the upcoming young people or upcoming lawyers or upcoming professionals. I think it's to sort of like make failure normal, because like the successes that you'll get or the confidence that you'll get will be based on the amount of experiments that you have ran. So like what Igama said, like it's all about like what you do about it when you're there. Like even Ms. Mkhwana, as I said, like when she was volunteering at the courts, like it's the amount of exposure that you put yourself on, like on the shoes, which you know exactly that I'm uncomfortable in this position, but what am I going to do with it? Am I going to go out there and do it, or am I going to just like back up? But yeah, I think it's telling students or telling young people that failure is normal. At the beginning, you're going to fail a lot. Most of the things that you're going to do are just not going to work out. But I think it's about being comfortable in those steps, and being comfortable that at times you're going to be different. At times, you know, you're not going to get the outcomes that you expect. But with time, you're going to get better. Like if you zoom out and not look at in a micro level, you're going to see that the trend is going up. So I think that's the advice that I think would come from my side, and how I sort of like build confidence for my experts. It's like most of the time, even in business meetings and stuff, like I'm always like the youngest person who's doing certain things, or I'm always like the person who's none this, who's none that. And speaking from the perspective, I think also like touching a little bit from the question which was asked earlier on, you're gonna be in rooms where most of your peers, they're gonna speak English with the twang, they come from certain schools, they come from private schools and so forth and so on. So it's also like developing that character, that like your ideas matter, your voice matter, and whatever that you propose to the table, whatever solution that you propose matter, because no solution that is complete at the start. But I think it's always gets better with refinement. So yeah, number one is just to normalize failure, and number two is to increase the amount of experiment that you run in whatever field that you want to grow. I think with that in time, like things get better.
I think also just
Thank
to
you so
add,
much, Alumni Makwani, for that answer. I think this question is posed to Ms. Mkhwanazi.
okay.
And the question is, would you say passion is what drove you to being a prosecutor, or was it a choice that was readily available to you? I think you partly answered that question, but I think the student wants to know a little bit more.
Okay, as I said, I was exposed by volunteering, and I was actually very fortunate that the person who I volunteered for, who is still my mentor, is one of those who actually accepts a lot of students from university. You just sit in his office, and he literally drives you and teaches you in depth about criminal law. Let me just put it that way, because mostly as prosecutors we deal with criminal law. Criminal law, it's only a little bit of maintenance, though we do have maintenance officers, but sometimes we need to interject and go into maintenance, but we deal with criminal law. So it was basically him. let me just put it that way. When I was in his office, everything that we used to do, everything that he taught me, it drove me to basically loving criminal law. Nothing specific, nothing from the movies, nothing, just volunteering.
Okay.
Not suits.
Suits.
Yeah.
Okay. This question's also directed to you, Ms. Mkhwanazi. So, the question says, what does a prosecutor do on a day-to-day basis? And how does an aspirant prosecutor increase his or her chances in excelling as a prosecutor? So the first part says, I think maybe we can just break it down. What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, as I
said, on a day-to-day.
Okay, we are considered basically as the people's lawyers. That's what we were taught when we started prosecution. We are the people's lawyers. We deal with criminal matters. As soon as somebody is probably aggrieved criminally, they go and open a criminal charge at the police station. Whether it's assault, whether it's murder, whether it's rape, we are the ones that represent the persons who open the case. So police officials, day to day, we receive our dockets in the morning. We decide, we look at the docket, we decide what charges to prefer, or if there is actually a crime that was committed. Anybody can open a case, but at the end of the day, we need to decide whether there is a crime. So we decide on which charges to prefer, and the person goes into court, and we basically represent the person, the complainant, in respect of the language that is used in prosecution. So we represent the complainant. So we prepare the docket, take the matter to court, and it's postponed for various occasions. You know, in courts, in criminal courts, matters are postponed and postponed and postponed. But there's obviously reasons why matters are postponed. And eventually, once it's ready for trial, we are the ones that represent. We consult with the complainants, and we put them in the box, and they basically give the evidence on what happened or what occurred on the day in question.
Oh, nice. And the second part of the question is, how does an aspirant prosecutor increase his or her chances in excelling as a prosecutor should that particular individual be hired after the aspirant prosecutor program? I think that's what this particular student was trying to say.
So basically, they are an aspirant? No, they want to excel.
Exactly, yeah.
It's all dedication. I won't lie, it's all dedication, because what the aspirant program does, they literally grill you as much as they can, you know. For the first 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, if I'm not mistaken, we do theory. All we do is criminal. We study the criminal procedure act, we study criminal law, we study law of evidence. So it's all dedication and understanding. Everything that you do, you need to not just do it just for the sake of it. You need to understand what you are doing when you are taught. There's a reason why each and every single thing is taught to you once you're in that training room. So when you go out and you start, you know, doing the practical side, understand and because theory is different than practice, guys. It's definitely not the same. So it's all about taking whatever you studied in theory and actually relating to what you're doing in practice. So it's all dedication, hard. Oh, and asking, like in law, we all know, whether you in whichever field, you'll never know everything. Ask as much, even if you think it's a stupid question, it's fine. Ask. So it's all about asking, especially in what you call it in courts. You'll never know everything. So it's dedication, hard work.
Okay, thank you.
So our next question is for Advocate Nase. As a former legal clerk, what are the tips or advice would you give to an aspirant legal clerk of the Constitutional Court who wants to stand out or stick out from the crowd when applying?
So you find two types of people clerking at the three, maybe. You find people who come straight from varsity, they go and clerk. And really there it's for what you, like what I said before, it's what you have been doing in varsity. So you're involved in SLSJ, you're involved in SABWiL, you were involved in, there used to be an organization called CLASSI, the Constitutional Literacy Service Initiative that we had back in the day. I don't know if it still exists. So it's those organizations and student societies. And then you find people that have clerked and done like articles of clerkship now, being candidate attorneys, which comes also at an advantage for those people. And then you find people that have practiced and are now attorneys, or people who have done masters, etc. So all of that counts, and that brings some advantage to you. Well, not some, but a lot. But what you must also consider is your marks when you are still in varsity. So trying to get as much as you can in your academic transcript. Unfortunately, I was not one of those. I was a 60% person at the time. But what helped me then is getting myself into the clerkship. So before I even got the clerkship, I had applied like 3 times and I didn't get it, right? But how I got myself there was, I then got to do articles. I then studied at Wits. I then stayed as an attorney at Wits. I then went to study, like I said, the masters, etc. And then I applied to the Concord, and then I got in there. It was something that I always wanted to do. And at that time when I got in, I got in with the judge that I always wanted to clerk for, which was like a bonus. But it's like you need to think about where you want to be. I'd always wanted to be an advocate, but I knew, how do I then set myself to becoming an advocate? I'd always wanted to practice at Group 621. How do I set myself up to getting there? So I've always understood that it's not something that sometimes can happen like this, like some students who clerk straight from varsity or straight from articles, but you need to set yourself up in the things that you do. Advice to anyone who wants to clerk. Let me say I have friends who've like done podcasts, or not podcasts, YouTube videos or channels on clerking at the Concord. Even the Concord website itself has a recruitment, not website, the YouTube channel has a recruitment video there where law clerks talk about what you need to do and how to set yourself up if you want to be a law clerk at the Concord. But just to touch on the people that have done videos on it, and those videos are extensive. I can't speak to everything that they've said there. If you look for a person on YouTube called Atlehang Govuza, I clerked with her. She did a very excellent video on clerking. Also Sinako, she's also done another video on a Q&A where people ask what you need to do to set yourself up in terms of clerking. So if you look at those videos, they'll explain more and delve deeper into those details in what you need to set yourself up to get into that space.
Thank you. That was very informative. The next question is directed to the candidate attorney, Ms. Masango. The question reads as follows: what do medium or big size law firms look at when recruiting a candidate attorney? Do academics really matter in this stance?
So I will say, as I had mentioned earlier, I think being a well-rounded candidate is probably the thing that sticks out the most, but marks do appear to matter. I'm saying appear to matter because there are candidates that have gone in that don't necessarily have glowing marks, but they have glowing portfolios, if I can put it that way. Like Ayabonga said, he set himself up for being at the Concord, and there's candidates that set themselves up for being that way. So even if the marks aren't the best, but the candidate is well-rounded. But I will say it's important to apply yourself academically, because that's the first thing that's going to get you through the door. That's what's going to make them look at you and say, does this person know the law? Do they understand, without speaking to you at all? And I think then once you get through that door, you can sell yourself and they can see who you are and how you think as a person. I would encourage people to focus on marks, but also just focus on everything that would make them look good. The mooting, for example, the extra activities, community service, doing your masters. I think, especially because it's becoming more competitive to get into these medium and big-sized and international law firms, having extra qualifications does put you in good stead. You'll see if you do articles at one of those type of firms, most of the people don't just have an LLB. It will be a BCom law, an LLB, and a master's, for example, or a lot of advanced courses that they did after the LLB. So don't focus solely on one degree. Look at the marks, try to put yourself in a place that can at least get them to look at your application, and then also focus on yourself as being a fully well-rounded candidate so that you can at least stand out from the pack. Then the rest of the journey, being the interviews, that's going to be you selling yourself. But yeah, the marks do count, but just relative, put that into perspective.
Okay.
So this question is posed to alumni Makubane, and it says, how do you manage to acquire a healthy work-life balance, and what would you recommend to an aspirant CA, prosecutor, advocate, or a 4IR specialist to succeed in any of these careers?
Oh my God, the work-life balance. What a controversial topic. I mean, in the early days, like, there will be no balance. I don't want to lie. Like, I mean, even with myself, I'm still young. I'm still getting into the industry, and I'm still doing a lot of things at once. But there will be no balance. I think it's just being comfortable that there will be no balance at times. They're just trade-offs in life. Like, that's how it just works. But like, one of my advice to, especially like with the programs we're running now, I'm just going to raise one of the case studies I recently did in Spain. We did a project with the Lego company. Most people know it, the toy company. I'm going to use that case study since we did it for like an educational purposes. I worked with the in-house counsel, with their national in-house counsel in the US, and then the one in Denmark, and another one I think from the UK. So one of the things that they're really looking for is having a business aspect into things, like how understanding how to acquire client, how do you retain client, how do you grow a business, because at the end of the day, law is a business. You know, like that's one of my standpoints which I took into getting into the industry, as opposed to like looking at the substantive reading of the law itself, but looking at the processes, the systems, and the tools that lawyers can use to make the processes of law way better. Like, I think it's better to also like start acquiring certain skills, like understanding how to do email marketing, how to do this, how to do that, because that's one of the things that will get your foot into the door, that will get you your email to be replied to. One of the examples that I do is that you can just do a course on something and then offer the service to a law firm. Email a director, tell them, hey guys, I saw that your website lacks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can I please come in and help out with that? People always appreciate someone who comes in and helps out rather than someone who just asks for something. So one of the things is really to acquire those special skills, and it's not necessarily needs to be like something extremely technical, but something which you know that you are good at, something which you know that you enjoy doing, and something which you know that you can offer as a service in return for something. So I think that's one of the things which a lot of businesses are looking for, and a lot of like global companies which are setting up like massive in-house departments and massive legal technology departments, which I didn't even get to explain what is it. But there are a lot of like definitions out there with specifically what is legal technology. But how you can necessarily understand it is that it's tech for law rather than the conventional approach, whereby especially with lawyers and legal professionals look at it like how can law regulate technology that is outside. But in this stance, it's the opposite. How can technology make law better? You know, rather than the law regulating technology, but it's the other way around. Like, what are the systems that can we implement? What are the tools that can we use? Like basic understanding of how can I use my email to make sure that my client management systems are better? How can I use CLM tools, contract lifecycle management systems, to make sure that my contracts are managed in a particular way? Like I can refer you to like a whole lot of resources, but I'll just share my email below. Whoever's interested, I will just share some courses and resources, because they're one of the companies in the US which I'm working with. They're actively recruiting law students and law professionals who are willing to jump into legal technology and who are willing to learn like some of the processes that can be used to make a legal department better and increase their efficiencies. So they're offering all of these contract lifecycle courses to understand how to manage contracts, how to do this, how to do that, even with document automation and artificial intelligence, and how to sort of use all of those tools to run a law firm. Not necessarily, because I think one of the things that I've noticed is that when you speak about technology to lawyers, they're like, oh my God, this tech, like, you're bringing in robot lawyers, or robots are going to do the work of lawyers. No, it's not like that. But it's actually like, how can we understand the tools at our disposals to make sure that we continue growing our practices, to make sure that we continue growing the way we work with our teams and so forth and so on. But yeah, that number one is just acquiring skills, and number two, knowing how to use those skills to add value to other people's lives, or to add value to businesses. Now, which one example that I use is to reach out to law firms and ask, how can I help you guys, or just stalk them. That's one of the things that you can do online. Stalk what they're doing, stalk what they want to achieve, and learn what they want to achieve and sell it back to them. In that case, people will always have a space for you and will always appreciate your help, and you'll always get a space in the table. So that's one of the examples that I can give.
Thank you so much, Mr. Makubane. I see we have a hand raised. I think it's Kamogelo. You have a question. We will take that question and then move on to our surprise question pertaining the discussion that ensued right now with our panelists. So I think Kamogelo and Refilwe.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello. I can't switch on my camera because it keeps on telling me that it is disabled. So I want to ask, actually, I need an advice. I'm a learner from prosecutor. So I want to do law, but I'm confused when I'm looking at the percentage of unemployment in our country. It's very high. So I want to do law, yes, but then because of the high unemployment in our country, I'm scared that I might get a job after a while.
Okay, so I'm not sure if our panelists did hear the question. She's a high school student, but she wants to do law. but with the high unemployment rates, she's afraid that she might stay for a long while without getting a job. I'm not sure if any of our panelists would like to take that question and answer it and maybe put her at ease.
Even though my camera is off, but it's fine. I think this question basically boils down to the same answer that Latoya gave us. It's all about selling yourself, whichever career that you go into, whether it's law, whether it's admin, whichever career, it's all about selling yourself at the end of the day, because the unemployment rate in South Africa is high, regardless of which career you go into. But at the end of the self, if you are a person who's dedicated and knows what they want, you are able to sell yourself whichever degree that you have in your hand. So it's all about exposing yourself, doing your research. I believe that it boils down to the same answer that Latoya gave us. Sell yourself, do whatever that you are passionate about, because it doesn't help doing something that you don't like just because you or know that it's easy to get a job there. But that at the end of the day, you won't like it and you won't excel doing it. Meanwhile, you can do law, and that is the one thing that you love doing, and you will excel yourself. And by excelling, you will sell yourself to other people, and you'll find yourself actually in higher places than you actually ever expected.
If I can also just add to what Thandi just said, I think it's also important, especially since you're in high school, to know at this stage that when you go into law, it's not just about being an attorney or an advocate. There are very, very wide and different career paths that you can take with having an LLB degree. And like Thabo, for example, who's found the niche in law and technology, that's a path that can be taken. I think when you study law or when you decide to do it, be of the mindset or be aware of what that degree can give you. It's not just about being an attorney. It's not just about being an advocate. There are different pathways that can bring the same amount of fulfillment to you, but just be aware of what those are. You can be an ombudsman, for example, as I mentioned. You can be, as Thabo is, finding that niche, a prosecutor, an advocate. Anything is out there, but the law can open those doors to you. So your limitations shouldn't necessarily be about, will I be a lawyer in the traditional sense, but more of what can I do with this degree.
And I mean, I think you have the advantage of time. Most people didn't quite figure out or have access to this this seminar that we're having now to speak to people. Now you can speak to Latoya, you can speak to me, you can speak to Makubane now, and figure out if you like what they do, and like I say, you have the advantage of time to decide, and then you take it from there. And I think, I mean, if you keep in touch with any one of us, I'm sure, and I'm 100% sure that you'll be exposed to different fields and different people and different kinds of work, such that when you do want to work, you should be in a far better position to be employable when you start. I just wanted to, in addition to everything that's been said now.
Thank you so much for those informative answers. Refilwe, you have your hand up, and then we'll have a guest from UP Women in Law after Refilwe, and then we'll call up our acting media to do the next item on the agenda. Refilwe, you are up next.
Hi everyone. So my name is Refilwe Rapadu. I'm a high school student. I'm doing grade 12 this year. So I decided to choose law as my third option career. So I wanted to know that, does law have to align with your personality?
Thank you for that question. I'm not sure, Ms. Danisile, would you like to take that question for us, please?
Okay, I'm just not understanding personality. are you a shy person? I'm not understanding.
I'm a shy person. I'm afraid of crowds. So I want to do law. So I want to know if my personality can align with what I want to do. Does it have to align with what I want to do?
Okay, I think even if you're a shy person, but at least you need to be confident in whatever you say or do. You know, as Latoya said, there are a lot of avenues in law. You don't necessarily have to be a person who's in court, who's arguing. You know, there's other avenues. For example, you can work I mean, I didn't even know that there's technology. I don't know. I don't know where's the other guest now who talks about technology, but I don't think that being shy is something that should hinder you in doing law. Oh yes, there's Tabo who talks about technology. I don't think being shy should hinder you in becoming or studying towards law. But confidence, you need to be confident in whatever you're doing. You know, I don't know if there's other guests that can assist me in that, but otherwise, being shy is not really. I mean, I think I'm also a shy person, but other people like to say no, you're not. But I think I am.
But I think it also goes back to the question that was answered, I think, by Utabo about confidence, and the fact that you need to enter into rooms and be able to speak, right? You may be shy or introverted in some ways, but if you're able to enter a space and own it, and you should be able to succeed. And it starts now in high school. You said you're in grade 12. If you weren't doing debate, it starts in varsity, where you expose yourself to student societies, you expose yourself to speaking more in class, you expose yourself to your professors and speak to them, ask questions, and going and asking those questions, right? And going to other organizations and law firms and seeking for internships or those back work if you do branch into law. But also to the question that was asked earlier about confidence, about not being able to twang or to articulate yourself properly. I think it helps very much to start reading, which was one of the things at the very least that helped me to start reading about being Black and being articulate and being where you're from, so that you understand firstly yourself before you put yourself out there. And then in reading those books, you understand that this is the world and this is how it will receive you, particularly because of the color of your skin. And now you have, and then there's power in that knowledge. Then you know how to interact with the world. If you think about how politicians speak with that comrade language, which sometimes we don't understand, you may not even think it's English. Or if you think about the most successful lawyers who speak, whom we see on TV, like your Toby, he doesn't speak with a twang, but he makes the point that he wants to make. So you want to be that kind of a person who can enter a space, say what they want to say, and no one can ever take that away from you. But it also starts with you. It starts with reading. It starts with speaking, because your vocab gets better when you read more and when you're exposed to the English language more. And when you speak it doesn't help having it here without knowing how to say things. So that's what I would implore you to do, to start speaking and reading and sources of getting confident in yourself, reading those books and speaking to people, obviously.
I think Mr. Makubane would like to add to that.
Amazing. I mean, I would very much like to thank Abonga for raising the point of identity and understanding yourself. I mean, especially like in laws with certain niches and certain like practice areas, you get to find out that there won't be a lot of people who look like you, especially in tech. Tech like is very much known for like to being a white space of white people. Like I remember I worked for a company where I think there were 300 employees and I was the only Black guy. It was awful. It was very bad. Like I didn't receive like any like bad treatment or so forth and so on. But it's the constant questioning of like do I even belong here? Like, are my ideas even worthy for listening? Because you'll constantly get into spaces where you'll only be the only person that look like that, and I think it makes so much sense to go back and understanding yourself and understanding that, for the fact that you are here, for the fact that you are in this meeting with all of these smart people, like, it's not a mistake. For the fact that you asked that question, it's not a mistake. You are worthy to be there, and you should like express that more and more enough. Like, I was that kind of a person who was very much ignorant about those things. I really didn't pay much careful attention to, or maybe I didn't have someone who would tell me like early on that, what, get into understanding like your consciousness, get into understanding like your backness matter, get into understanding that like even though there aren't many people who look like you in the space, it doesn't mean that you don't belong there. You get what I'm saying? So like it went to a point whereby it started affecting me psychologically, and it's just a long spiral that goes down. But I think it's very important that you also like ask this question like of personality and careers, and whether or not before I choose certain thing, or how can I validate that I belong there? Like, is there people who look like me? Even my language, like most of us, like English is not even our native language. It's the secondary language that we learn at school. And no matter how much we speak it, it will always come back to the fact that it's not our language. I will never be as proficient as, as much as I would learn it and be proficient in it, but, it will always hit you back that, what, this is not my language. There's certain things that I cannot express as much as I want to, but it's just a journey of learning about yourself, and it's just a journey of understanding that, for the fact that you are in the space, you belong there, and for the fact that you thought about it, it's not a mistake. You are supposed to even think about it, and like your journey will lead you there. But I mean, thank you so much for raising that topic, and it's very important, especially to young people. Because there's a lot of like bad things going on in corporates. Like that they can go on mentioning them. You'll receive a lot of like a negative comment. Like, I don't want to intimidate a lot of people, but I think it's better like to say it now earlier on, that like a lot of the times like you receive a lot of rejections which are just not grounded on anything. You receive a lot of bad days whereby you'll get to realize that you are the only person who looks like that in the space, but it doesn't mean that you don't belong there. It means that you should just own the space, own your views, hold like firmly to what you believe in, and believe in that. For the fact that you thought about it, for the fact that you considered this career path, it matters to you and you are worthy to be there. So I know that it's one of the things that are not like academically nice to talk about, but it does matter as a human being, and it does matter as a Black person, because that topic in your life or psychologically in your mind, it will be at the back of your mind, or at some point it will come to the fact where it will really affect you, and you'll really start questioning whether or not, is it even for me? Am I even valuable enough? Are my ideas worthy and stuff like that? But just know that all of it is worthy, and yeah, you're supposed to be there, and it's supposed to go on that way. But I mean, thank you so much thank you so much to Ayabong for raising this issue. I know that it can be something which is very closely related to my journey at this moment of what I'm going through, and that is why I kind of like mumbling and going on and on and on and on. But yeah, I mean, thanks.
Just add one more thing.
Thank you so much for that.
Very, very
Yes,
powerful video of Utsietsi that was played earlier in what he says. So if we can think more about what he's saying in that video of what South Africa is becoming and what it will be and what is not in the consciousness of people. Very powerful. I don't know if we can play it at the end, but if we can have a takeaway on that as well, in addition to what Uthabo was saying. Thanks.
I will ensure to share the video with all our guests today, so you can have it for keeps. We have unfortunately come to an end of this session. So with that, we will just quickly go to our matriculants today who are joining us to test if everybody was listening. So Shailene, our acting media and academic researcher for today, will ask this question, and I would like to have all the matriculants be ready to raise their hands and answer the question. Shailene, over to you.
Thank you so much, President. So I do have 3 questions in case we have more than like a few people that can answer it. So the first question that I do have is in the beginning of discussion. In the discussion, the first question was asked, does the institution where you study law matter? And to what degree does it matter, if it does matter? So like a few of our panelists has answered the question. So I remember Latoya answered the question and she said something very inspiring. She said that it doesn't necessarily matter, but she doesn't want to say that it does not matter. And then also our alumni also answered the question. So I want to know overall, what was the overall consensus to that question? Does the institution where you study law matter? If anybody can answer that question, please do raise your hand.
Our matrix in the guest list, we are waiting for you.
Was that question too difficult? I tried to keep it as simple as possible so that we could have as many answers as possible.
Hi, Shalin. Can you please repeat your question?
Not a problem at all. So my question was, what was the overall consensus of the panelists to the question, does the institution where you study law matter? And to what degree, if it does matter? There was an overall consensus. A lot was said, but I think there was like an overall deciding factor of like whether or not it does truly matter. There is one.
Hi. Okay, so I'm not a matriculant. I'm actually a 3rd year LLB student representing UP Women in Law. But I think the overall consensus was that to a lesser extent it does matter. However, what is important or what is to a greater extent is what you can basically offer. So what makes you a good candidate in terms of what do you have in your CV? What have you done? What have you studied? Have you furthered your studies? So I would say no, it actually doesn't matter as much as to what qualities you have that makes you a good candidate.
Looks like we only had one hand raised for that question. Shalin, if you have the next question, you may proceed. You are muted. Shalin, you may proceed. There is no other hand raised. My apologies, your mic is muted.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? There seems to be a problem with me unmuting the mic. Am I audible?
Yes, so we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you so much. So I say that because of the mic, I think I'm just going to leave the mic on for the rest of the segment because I did have some issues trying to unmute it. So the next question is also, thank you so much to the 3rd year student. The answer was correct. So sorry, I did not get your name. So the next question we have is, it was answered by prosecutor Mugwabani, and it was, what does the prosecutor do on a day-to-day basis? She mentioned a phrase. She said that prosecutors are referred to as what? If anybody can tell me the phrase that she mentioned, what are prosecutors and what they were told that prosecutors are when she first started, that would be the answer to the question. So she mentioned that prosecutors are what? They are called what? If anybody knows the answer, please raise your hand in the question in the chat.
Kamogelo, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I heard the prosecutors talking about prosecutors being people's lawyers. I think they are people's lawyers because they deal with assault and some other crimes like rape and murder. So, yeah, cases that deal with people. Yeah.
That is correct. Thank you so much. She said that prosecutors are referred to as the people's lawyers. She also mentioned the fact that they represent and consult with complainants. And so thank you so much for the answer. That is correct. I think we're going to do one last question, and then we will move on with the rest of the program. But thank you guys for your participation. I'm glad to hear that you have been paying attention and that you are taking note, and that this has actually been a learning experience for most of you. So the last question we have was answered by Ms. Masango. The question was posed to her and she answered it really well, in my opinion. The question was, what does big law firms look for when recruiting? Big or medium firms look for when recruiting? What was the answer to that question? It can be based on your understanding also, as long as you got the gist of the answer to that question. If there are any takers, please raise your hand or answer it in the chat box.
The lady from UP, sorry, we didn't get your name. Can you please repeat your name for us?
Apologies, I actually forgot to introduce myself. My name's Andani. I think the answer to the question is, the first thing is what gets you through the door is your marks. So your academic transcript actually matters. And then the second thing is, what do you have to offer? So basically at the interview stage, they'll look at things that are on your CV. Have you been involved in university subcommittees? Have you been involved in societies? Have you done moot court, things like that? So basically, the answer to the question is your marks first, and then 2, your participation in extracurricular activities.
Thank you so much. That is correct. And I think that based on the fact that you answered 2 of the 3 questions, I think that you are the best listener. I think that award will go to you. You'll get bragging rights. So thank you so much for your participation. It's really greatly appreciated. And thank you to everybody that participated and that has been paying attention and just being present in this event. Thank you so much. And over to you, President.
Thank you so much for that, Shailene. And Danny, please drop me your email address. I will email you this Best Listener Award for today's event. And congratulations once again for being a very active and best listener for this event. Over to you, Nonhlanhla.
Now that we have officially reached the end of our event, I would like to thank each and every one of our speakers for the day, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and give back to the people, basically the youth of this country and the future and aspirant legal practitioners. It is super soothing to know that we still have people like yourselves who give back without expecting anything in return. And we therefore say that the legal fraternity remains a noble and richer profession with individuals like yourselves. I'd like to say thank you on the behalf of SABWiL. I'll now hand over to our beautiful president, who will just conclude the entire event.
Once again, thank you so much, Nonhlanhla, for this beautiful and well-coordinated event. Would like to extend our apologies for all the glitches that we experienced at the beginning of the session. Advocate Ncube extends his apologies as well. But while we are here, I would like to honor the following guests who are in our midst today. I would like to give a special thank you to the representative of Women in Law, Andani. Thank you for your participation and thank you for joining us today. I would like to also give a special mention to the president of Girl Power, Ms. Refilwe Mthembu, who has coordinated and orchestrated the participation of matriculants from Tselopilu Secondary School. We appreciate you and we see your efforts. Salute to you, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us today. And likely we would like to thank all our participants, and we appreciate and give thanks, and honor really is ours and the pleasure is ours to have been afforded this platform, and would like to thank the CEO, the directors, and the founder of SABWiL. We love you, Advocate Aisha, and we thank you for this platform, allowing our students, our youth, to grow and truly spread their wings and show their truest potential and carry the flag forward, which was carried by our foundation builders, the likes of Tsietsi Mashinini, the likes of Batela, who really carried the flag and set the foundation for us. And may we continue to carry the banner. And thank you so much to our distinguished guests. Thank you, Ms. Masango. Thank you, Ms. Mkonazi and Mr. Makubane, Advocate Nase. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate you. And with that being said, I will actually play the video again as requested by Advocate Nase for your perusal, but I will also send it to you, and you can send me your emails where I can drop the video for you. It will be available for your perusal, saving republication for 30 days from the day I share it with you. Please do email me at president@sabwil.org.za, and if you wish to have this video where you can just go back to it and realign yourself and re-soak in the presence of such greatness, the video will be published in all our social platforms. You can access it on YouTube, and links will be posted on other social platforms for you to access the video. And we hope that you when you're much more relaxed and not nervous about asking the questions, you can go back to the video and just revisit it and get more information if you may have missed something during the panelists speaking. Thank you very, very much for everyone, to everyone for coming through. We appreciate you. Igama lamakhosikazi, malibongwe. May you continue to shine in your glory. Keep the candle shining. Keep the candle lighting. Thank you so much. I will be sharing the video shortly.